We met at the Sahitya Sadan probably around 1959. The first impression was another Vaijayanti Mala. When she walked from her house to the school, boys will be waiting just to get a glimpse of her. And I was one of them.
I can't even imagine what it must have been like for her to leave everything, to come to a country where she didn't speak the language.
Madhu Sheth and her family donated 3.75 acres land. That's where the Jain Society's the center building started.
If they have not donated the land, the project must have not happened. Civil rally everybody for the common cause.
They have brought Indian cultural and Jain studies to campus.
Within so many different communities that she is part of, everyone senses when she walks into the room.
Madhu was born in Mandavi, Kutch.
She came from a small family. Right? There were 4 children. There was 2 older brothers, 1 older sister, and then her parents, Rati Lal Shah and Diwali Ben Shah.
Her parents had settled in Cochin in South India. There was a fear about the World War II or Japanese rolling over to India to capture Calcutta. So the port cities like Cochin will be under bomb attack. The family moved to Kutch, where they come from. After the war was over, after 5 years, they moved, but rather than go back to Cochin, they decided to settle in another South Indian city called Madras. Now we call it Chennai.
My grandfather, her father, started a jute business, a jute trading business in Chennai or Madras. And that really started to take off. They did well, everything was good.
There were Gujarati Samaj, there were temples. It was a nice atmosphere for Gujaratis to survive over there. I went to a private school. Medium of instruction was Gujarati till we were almost in high school.
Her college was Stella Maris College, where she studied science and English.
In those days, not too many Gujarati girls went to college either. When I went to college, we were only 6 of us. In the whole college, there were only 6 girls. From my batch, I was the only one who went to college. One day, we had just gone to meet our old teachers. Just at that time, my principal, the headmistress, she says, "Madhu, why don't you start teaching?" And I said, "I don't know anything about teaching." She says, "We'll teach you how to teach." So I did start, and I loved it. I loved it very much.
She was one of the very few women in her society, in fact, the first woman in her community to ever actually work. And she became a middle school teacher, teaching 6th and 7th grade students. Now here was a lady who was 19 or 20 maybe, teaching middle school kids who were 13, maybe 11, 12. So they looked up to her like she was an older sister. And my mom was beautiful and just a sight for people's eyes. So they loved having her as a teacher. During that time, my dad had started a literary school, a literary organization, Sahitya Sadan, which was there to help preserve the Gujarati language and culture in South India, where they were in Madras.
There was a very, very famous poet who was visiting Madras. So I wanted to definitely go and attend that sessions. Everybody was well behaved. Immediately I liked it and I said, okay, I'm going to go and join that. And I really enjoyed it very much.
We met at the Sahitya Sadan probably around 1959. The first impression was another Vaijayanti Mala. Vaijayanti Mala was probably the most famous actress from South India. Absolutely beautiful. Madhu was the same way, striking. She had a style, walk, self-confidence. In fact, I can tell you that when she walked from her house to the school, boys will be waiting just to get a glimpse of her, okay? And I was one of them.
We used to handwrite a magazine every year. He was very good in Gujarati, so we would edit all the material that has come in.
And I guess more we worked together, more we came to know each other. And I think it just happened eventually. We both started liking each other.
After they met at Saitya Southern, within about 6 months, my father had applied to MBA programs in the United States and was accepted. He was accepted at the University of Pittsburgh.
And I told her, if you can wait, I'll be there for about 2 years, 1 year MBA, 1 year job, and then I'll come back, and can you wait to marry me when I come back?
We used to write continuously, so every week. As soon as I'll get his letter, I'll reply on the very same day. So he will write me all about how United States is, how is the education system, how the weather is doing so bad over here. So I'll just let him know what is happening over there in Madras.
And then my dad decided it was time for him to do a PhD. But on a PhD stipend, that wasn't enough money for him to come back to India to get married. He didn't have the funds. He had enough, just enough, to bring my mom from India.
So then he asked me that I should come here and get married to him because he will not be able to come back to India.
They really did fall in love at first sight. So I think when the idea came for him to travel and go to school in the US, she was probably a bit distraught at the idea that he was going to be gone. When he decided not to go back, but to stay to do his doctorate, I think that really was the clincher. I can't go much longer without him, so I'm ready to leave everything and go and join him.
No parent will ever send a daughter without an engagement. So we had an engagement in my absence with my photo.
I came here in 1962, December.
Think about a young woman, never traveled before except in train stations. She flew from Bombay all the way to New York, and then from New York to Pittsburgh.
That's bold. I mean, that's brave. I can't even imagine what it must have been like for her to leave everything, to come to a country where she didn't speak the language, and to go to Pittsburgh, of all places, where it was cold, it was dark half the year, no leaves on the trees, but she did it.
We're all in awe of how she was able to do that, coming here with no family at all and no Indian resources or anything, and then coming here from India, and when she came it was, I think, snowing or winter.
So my mom had just turned 22 when she arrived in the United States, and she had never seen snow before. So in fact, the day that she landed, my dad and her played in the snow for a couple of hours, throwing snowballs at each other and getting to know one another again. And then right after she landed, they got married at the Heinz Chapel on December 22nd, 1962.
1 week before the wedding, the church or the chapel found out that actually there is no way they will allow the Indian ceremony with fire, and without fire, of course, we cannot have a wedding. And ultimately we had a compromise in having a charcoal grill, which they allowed. She apparently knew what to do at a wedding ceremony, brought all the ingredients that you need. I was lucky to have a priest who was actually a professor from Wadia College in geography at University of Pittsburgh doing a postdoc work, and he became our priest. Relatively small wedding, maybe 70 to 80 people. After marriage, we decided Madhu will not be professional. She was a teacher. She will be homemaker. I will be the breadwinner.
She really had to adapt to the United States. Everything was completely different than what it was in India. The food, the people, the culture, all of that was new to her.
You don't see your next door neighbors. They all are locked up inside their house because it's winter time. In India, you come from such a big family. I had brothers, sisters, mother, father, of course. And no matter where you go, you know everybody. And the only person I knew was my husband, And of course, he had to go to work every day. He was still a student, so he had to go attend his classes and do whatever he needed to do.
Both of us are vegetarian. She was brought up as a Jain family, and we had a hard time finding anything.
She would spend hours finding the types of foods that they needed and cooking the types of foods they needed. And often 3, 4, 5 hours in a day would go just in finding and making foods.
The Indian ingredients were not available very easily. And there were some flowers, whole wheat flour that was so thick, you can't even roll roti.
There was no single restaurant or even a store where you can get Indian groceries, etc. She would order that from a place in New York City called Kalustan's.
If you do order 10 items, out of 10, he would have only 6 or 7 in stock. He will send those, and out of those, 2 or 3 are just, it has gone bad.
After we got married, I finished my qualifying exams. I was a doctoral student. University of Pittsburgh had collapsed financially. My professor left to go to Columbia University. He asked me whether I would go with him because we were writing a book called The Theory of Buyer Behavior. And I decided to go with him. So we moved from Pittsburgh to New York City.
Surprisingly, I think for them, my mom got pregnant with my sister. Reshma was born in Manhattan shortly after my parents actually moved to New Jersey, just across the bridge, Fort Lee, New Jersey, but it was a place where they could have a house. And we had a house on the lake, and that's where I was born.
I must have moved 6 times easily. From Pittsburgh, somewhere around October, we moved to New York City. Then within a year or so, I decided to go to Boston at MIT. Again, one more move. Moving, in fact, to Boston. From Boston, I decided to come back to Columbia University.
We were moving so much. It's very difficult to just concentrate on one particular thing. So I had to take care of the children, make sure that they are happy in their life. I had to find school for them, and then make sure that they have good friends.
Then my dad's career really began to take off. His theory of buyer behavior that he created with his professor John Howard, the Howard Sheth theory of buyer behavior, really took off. And so the University of Illinois was willing to give him a tenured full professorship. And so the family moved to Illinois.
Till we went to Champaign, Illinois, we were more like gypsies, from one location to the other, staying no more than a year at any one apartment. Ultimately, Champaign, Illinois gave us an anchor.
Then once we came to Illinois, we bought a house for the first time. And then first time I felt like, okay, now we really belong.
Champaign-Urbana, where the University of Illinois is, in the middle of the state of Illinois, surrounded by cornfields and cows. It was a nice place to raise a family for my parents. As my father's career continued and he worked hard and toiled for hours and days upon time, Mom was really the one who was there to raise the family. She was the backbone for the family. She took us to all of our extracurricular activities. So whether it was Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, swimming, gymnastics, baseball, basketball, you name it, Mom was there.
She was very involved in our schools and in our social life, as well as involved in the Indian community, and always made sure that we were involved in sort of the Indian and Diwali shows and productions. So they would invite home students that didn't have a place to go over Thanksgiving.
She worked in the library. She worked for the school.
I started teaching the vegetarian cooking in the high school, and we had so many students, so many adults, wanted to learn Indian cooking, Indian vegetarian cooking.
My Dadima is an incredible cook, just incredible. She's extraordinary, her attention to detail while she cooks, she makes the most beautiful and tasty food. And so growing up, I really wanted her to teach me how to cook, and we spent months and months over the summers together and days, and she taught me how to make so many things, so I attribute my cooking skill to her.
As Reshma and I grew up and we became a little more independent, well, Mom was able to follow her own passions. And she was an entrepreneur. She had her own business.
I was importing, I had an import-export business from India.
I remember helping her. She was selling silver filigree jewelry and Indian kurtas and skirts and things like that. So we would go, years, 10 years, I think I remember going to different craft fairs and, different festivals and things like that, where we would set up the tables and, we'd mark the prices on the jewelry, we would decorate it in a certain way.
Mom became a big gardener. We had almost 2 acres of land.
So on one side of my lot, I had all the vegetables. And on the other side of the lot, the corner, I planted 15 fruit trees.
She loves plants. She loves animals. She will call us on a Saturday, Sunday morning and talk to us about how her plants are doing and how the birds are coming on her deck. And, she loves everything. She's a big nature lover.
She is a nature-loving, outdoorsy person, and anything that she does in life, she does it with such care, and she's so tender about it. And I can see that grace with it, and especially with her being outside and how she's so nurturing to the animals. I remember a time where she was struggling so much to put up this bird feeder, and I told her, I said, it's okay, we can do it another time. And she was so adamant, and I think she was saying no because I don't want the birds to get hungry and not have a meal to eat. And I just remember, I just saw right there, she really does care about the world around her, and of course God's creatures with it as well.
So we have 2 women's garden clubs here, and she is in both of them. She always has a beautiful garden. We're trying to compete. We're 2 houses across the street, but I don't know if we could get there. She always has beautiful flowers. Things are blooming all the time.
From University of Illinois, I finally decided to take a sabbatical in 1976. That was to go to Europe, and we went to Copenhagen. It was her idea. She said, we need to make sure children understand all kinds of cultures and differences, not just India versus America.
During that time, we traveled through almost all of Europe. We got to see all of Western Europe. And a lot of it was my mom taking Reshma and I, because my dad was so busy working, traveling, and all of the rest. He would come and join us where he could, but we would take overnight trains where it would just be my mom and us. And she was not only willing, but that is what she loved to do.
Out of 10 months we were there, she must have traveled 4 months with 2 kids, pretty much by train. URL, she did everything.
In 1984, my parents moved to Los Angeles because my father then began teaching at the University of Southern California.
University of Southern California wanted me. They were asking me to come from 1979 actually, but because our kids were still in the school, I didn't want to disrupt the whole thing. She said, let's wait till later on we can move. We bought a house in '83 actually, and that's where Madhu just found finally the right place for her.
The great thing about moving to Los Angeles was now my family, my parents had a large community of Indians, of Gujaratis, of Indian grocery stores, of everything that they had missed when we were growing up in Champaign-Urbana. And so it was a whole new world for my parents, especially for my mother. She made a ton of new friends.
I met so many families, almost like 30 families from my hometown of Mandvi, Kutch Mandvi. And Jagdish is from Mundra, so there were so many families from Mundra also. So for the first time, I meet not only Gujaratis, not only Jain, but people from my own hometown. And it was so much fun to find out how we all were related. We all were related in some or other way.
In Los Angeles, for the first time, she felt like she's a part of the community. And that's where we celebrated 25th wedding anniversary. Then the big event took place in '89 when Reshma, our daughter, got married in Los Angeles. She made every arrangement for that. Incredible again.
We had the White Horse. We also had a music party. USC band was in the procession.
Madhu is a very spiritual person.
I was very much, regular temple-going person when I was young because my parents were very religious and they made me go to the Jain school. But then as soon as I came here, there was no place to practice every day.
And when we went to Champaign, Illinois, same thing, there was no Jain temple. There were very few Jain community people in that town.
So my children never learned much of the Gujarati or Jainism. And I said, well, that's the price I have to pay in order to be living in the United States. You know, you have to give up something in order to get something.
But she kept at home the whole prayers and the sentiments, would teach the children how to think about Jainism, slogas and all that stuff. Typically, she kept her faith.
They started building a temple, a Jain temple in 1988. And I just could not believe it, that I'll ever be able to see that in the United States. It'll always remain as a wonderful thing to happen in my life.
When they built that Jain temple, it really inspired my mom to become much more engaged in her Jainism, her philosophy, her religion, than she was able to be in Illinois.
So when I saw all of these things happening in front of my eyes, I said, God, there is a God. There's a God who wants me to be, you know, with him.
She would visit the temple, she would go for lectures, she would meet people, and she again became reignited with that desire of being a part of that community and that culture. But Mom and Dad moved to Atlanta in 1991 so that Dad could begin teaching at Emory University. And when she came to Atlanta, that desire was there, but there was no temple in Atlanta. And so my mom quickly got to work in meeting a number of the heads of the Jain society that were here. They also had a desire to have a new temple, but didn't have the means of getting there.
By that time, of course, Reshma was already married. Raju was on the brink of getting married. So both the children will be starting their own life. We both wanted to do something to give back to the society. So of course, Jagdish had already started a Sheth Foundation. We already had started Sheth Education Foundation. I wanted to do something profound.
As a part of Jain philosophy, which is to serve the community, do not have too much possessions, give back to the society from which they nurtured you. So we started 2 foundations. One was in 1991, which is Madhuri and Jagdish Sheth Foundation, which actually primarily focuses on my discipline, marketing, on the scholarly side. Then we started a Sheth Family Foundation, which primarily supports Indian cultural events, any denomination, any activity. We support all the social causes, and it's very broad-based. And we must be supporting maybe 60, 70 different charities.
There were more than 10 couples who all came from outside at the same time. We all came from different cities where there were already temples. So all these newcomers, we all wanted temple.
We moved in 1990 from Houston to Atlanta. So at that time, all the Jains used to get together once a month at the different locations, like at Gujarati Samaj's place, because we didn't have our own facility. So in 1993, we pursued and got 501(c)(3) from IRS and officially made Jain Society of Greater Atlanta.
At that time, I was the vice president. We must have seen at least 50 lots and building together to do the temple.
And ultimately we found in Norcross these 2 homes which one could demolish them and make it into a land.
No matter where you are in Atlanta, within half an hour you can reach there. That's where Madhu Sheth and her family donated that 3.75 acres land.
If they have not donated the land, the project must have not happened. By doing the first step is to acquire the land for any good temple to be established. They were the first one to give the land to the community.
She was like our main person for the building committee. So she had other 5 people helping her, but she took a lead and helped us in finding the architect, finding the right contractors, finding the needed stuff, to helping in the designs, giving her inputs, and all those things.
Jain Center evolution itself is several phases. First phase was to build the main hall, finish it properly. Second phase was to have the kitchen downstairs. Third phase was to build a temple. And it took almost a decade or more than a decade to do all of these activities. And ultimately the temple was built, raised $3.4 million. It was inaugurated in 2008.
She was very instrumental in getting the murtis from India.
Everybody has really worked very hard and everybody's helped.
In Jain religion, we have 3 sects basically: Shwetambar, Digambar, and Sthanakwasi. Under the one roof, we accommodated all the 3 sects.
She wanted to make sure that all faiths of branches of Jainism are in one location.
The society has grew from when we were 150 members to today almost 700 to 750 members. We are almost doubling the whole size of the Jain Center.
Every Sunday, Madhu goes there. She's part of the group essentially, prays, does her prayers, but also meets the community leader and comes back in late afternoon usually. That's a typical routine.
Her life is Jain Center, has always been Jain Center, and Dad will kid that she will drop everything if it has anything to do with being involved or helping at the Jain Center.
She is one of the first women president actually for our society. We have only 2 women presidents, and she was one of the first ones, served for the longest as a woman president.
We have a federation of Jain associations called Jaina,
which is basically a federation of 65, 70 separate temples or societies all over North America.
I'm a chairperson of the Scholar Committee, so I have been director over there for a long time.
Where they make sure that the people of Jain origin, women primarily, understand financial literacy, because usually the husband does everything, understanding how to invest money right, learning the technologies. Every month I think they have a lecture series created. She identifies the right people.
Her leadership quality, if I can define, is she will rally everybody for the common cause. She has that attitude of getting help also, but giving help also. She did a lot of work having the right people in place, motivate them and get the things done.
In addition to the Jain Center and the Jain Temple or the Jain Society of Greater Atlanta, Madhu always wanted to have people study Jainism, whether those are Indian students or non-Indian students. So we decided to endow chairs in different universities. There's a larger group of donors and we began to join that things. One of the endowment is at Emory University where I teach, and it's $1 million endowment where main donor has contributed, we have contributed. Today all Christian priests, before they become priests, go through a master's program or a PhD, and actually they are now taught religions of the world, not just Christianity. But Jainism is conspicuously absent. Jainism is becoming from what we call a footnote religion. So now we are creating a program whereby a typical class of future priest will be immersed like 9 days or so learning about Jainism, both as a philosophy as well as in fact on the ritual side.
The Jainism is going to be part of their curriculum, religious curriculum, so that when they are learning about all other religions, they have to learn about Jainism too.
She's been always active in not only the Jain Center, but so many other things that are happening in and around Emory, and the foundations, the various organizations that they're part of, and everything from Raksha to Akshay Patra to Pratham, and a whole bunch of different organizations where they have actively contributed.
Not only monetarily, but she gives her time, her efforts to those charities as well.
When they do special lecture series, sometimes it's dance, sometimes it's medicine. Destination India, we've learned a great deal. We've seen dancers that I have never seen before and that I don't think anybody else has. And they bring the culture and they bring it it's inspirational that you want to go to India to see it.
You can partake in high-level lectures that typically would happen in India, happening here on Emory campus. Even in relatively very specific niche topics about Jain religion to very broad politicians who have gone on to do amazing things in India.
When I came to this campus in 1976, this was a Christian Southern university. There were barely a few blacks and barely a few Jews. They have brought Indian cultural and Jain studies to campus.
And my dad would not be where he is if it wasn't for my mom. My mom has been the backbone for the entire family, and that includes helping and supporting my father, both being there for him, taking care of him, making sure that his needs were met, but also raising the family.
I think mom and dad are the cutest couple I have ever seen. I think they balance each other out. Now dad has adapted to some of her habits, staying up late, watching TV, drinking tea after dinner, which I don't know how they do that, but just very, very cute things that they do. But I think mom is the driving force.
My mom and dad have the best relationship of any couple I've ever met now. He basically listens to everything she says. She gives him all kinds of suggestions and he says, yes, Madhu, makes sense. His famous line is, the best victories are in surrender.
Within so many different communities that she is part of, everyone senses when she walks into the room, whether it's the Jain Center or whether it's something, a get-together with a set of families or a picnic out somewhere. She becomes sort of the life of the party. And
her family comes first and foremost. She has kept us together. She is enthusiastic about celebrating every milestone, anything in the family, birthdays, anniversaries, and she does it in a big way with the biggest heart. It's so hard in this time of day when people are busy, kids, with kids and all. She has never missed a celebration. She's never missed calling for her birthday. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we all admire, and that's she'll carry that legacy on, and we aspire to be like her.
She's always willing to welcome everyone into her home, into our community, into our family, and just has open arms to everyone. Always wants to make everyone feel included and loved, and really is an amazing host and makes everyone feel at home.
My mother has given me born, but after coming here, she treated me as her own son, and I was very touched by that. And जैसे कहते हैं कि there are like Krishna, there's a mother who gave the birth and the other mother brought her up. So here in US, she brought us up, and which was very loving and caring.
She has an amazing intuition about knowing other people. She just meets someone and in few minutes, she would start helping them even without them knowing what's going on.
She's always putting herself out there and making everybody feel welcome and comfortable. She's helped educate us on rituals and pujas that we do, which I think is very important because we need to kind of keep passing those things down so that way we can teach new generations the same things that she's taught us.
She is the most inspirational and spiritual person, and she is the role model for all our women, for our community. I really, really admire her in so many ways.